Let's see if I can show you a Telegram bot that I'm building, which is basically a calories counting bot. From time to time I need to cut on my weight, and when I decide that's time to do a cut, my problem is that it's 15 years that I use this system. When I want to cut on my weight, I use a calorie tracking application. Basically I estimate my calories intake every day. Then what I do is to remove from the subtract from that like 350 calories or something like that, and then I start to count my calories weighting every food I eat in order to create a deficit. The problem with this approach is that inserting the data into the application is very boring. I do it because cutting is more important than not being bored, but it's boring mostly because the user interface of this kind of applications is not great. So I thought, now that we have LLMs, I can create basically a bot, a Telegram bot, asking DeepSeek. I'm using DeepSeek because it's quite fast and very cheap. And even if it is fast for this kind of applications, it's still slow, we will see. Where I have a prompt like that. So guess the calories and macros, proteins, fat, carbs of the food the user of the calories tracking application reported with the following text. And here I will substitute what the user reported. Help yourself with sections of CSV I included in the chat, if any. Basically, I discovered that when I let the bot do the guessing itself without any table, it hallucinates a lot. Because for super common foods, the LLM knows how many calories this food contains for 100 grams. For other foods, it's ways off, especially when the user writes apple pie or something like that, which is a complicated food to understand. So for this I used vector sets and vector similarity in order to augment the prompt with some data. Basically, I have these food items here, and there are many lines like that. Actually, it's small, and I have a much larger one that I want to add. This is just 2000 items, but it's ready enough to help with many queries. But I have a much larger one here, and I will use this eventually. So basically, proceed like this. This prompt, I had to deal and refine this prompt very well for the bot to start behaving. 1. Estimate the different elements in the description and the full weight of each food the user eaten. If no specific amount was written, otherwise use the specified amount, because I want the bot to work also when I write 1 apple. When doing so, first estimate and write down how many calories there is in a single item, for instance 1 apple, then multiply for the number specified by the user. Split foods in their components, like 100 grams of pasta with tomato is 2 items, if not 3 because of the oil, and so forth. Then adjust the calories and macros depending on the table specification. For instance, if the table is for 100 grams and the weight of what the user eaten is 10, of course we need to adjust. This looks like a lot of useless redundancy. Trust me, it's needed, otherwise the bot doesn't work as well as it should. Finally, make sure that the macros and the calories are correctly proportional, and so forth. Consider that 1 gram of carbo have 4 kilocalories, 1 gram of proteins 3.5, and gram of fat 9 kilocalories. If the estimate of ingredients and quantities In the estimate of ingredients and quantities, consider the potential country the user lives based on the used query language. This is very interesting because I asked for example, like one chocolate of the automatic dispenser, and since the bot assumed I was in the United States because I was writing in English, it reported quantities which are like double the one that are normal here in Italy and so forth. So I also add this. Steps to follow to produce the reply. First, do a step of reasoning where all the macros per 100 grams of products are shown, plus the reasoning steps needed to provide a good answer. Report the final answer in the following, as in the following example. Note that example may not be accurate. It's just for formatting. The JSON we left. This is because in the example I used something which is very common, pasta and tomato, and I don't want the bot to be too bound to these ones. Actually, I provided an exact example in order to avoid the entropy, which is already too much. The JSON will have the total of calories and macros. Don't write anything past reply, but write your reasoning before reply. In the text section, use the same language using the user food description in eaten food. So it's if it's in Italian, it's in Italian, and so forth. For each item in the text, use an appropriate emoji. So this is the format that I asked. DeepSeek is extremely good at sticking with the format that I outlined here. Let's show. Okay, I will show you how it works in practice, and then we will dive into the code, which is extremely simple. Okay, so I am here in the bot Telegram window, and I will write, for example, one big slice of apple pie, and we will check what happens here. Okay, the first thing is that we call the local Ollama to turn one big slice of apple pie into a vector, and then we do vector similarity inside Redis. And this is the entries that were the nearest in the vector set inside Redis. Apple pie, 100 gram, apple turnover, I don't know what it is, apple pie filling, apple cobbler, apple sauce cake, and so forth. Then this is the reasoning steps that it performs. Identify the food item, the user reported in one big slice of, since no specific weight is mentioned, we need to estimate the weight of a big slice. A typical slice of pie can range from 100 grams to 150 grams. This looks too much optimistic to me, with a big slice likely being around 150. I believe it can weigh, depends. If you go in Italy in a local bar and they serve you at the table, it's like that. If you eat one at home, it's going to be 300, I don't know. Match the food with the CSV data. From the provided CSV, the closest match is apple pie. So it used, let's see if it's true. It's true. So it performs the multiplication correctly. It doesn't have a Python tool or something like that. So I'm relying on the LLM to be able to multiply numbers and stuff like that. Estimate macros for 115, so it performs the macro estimation. And then let's see how good was the format used for the reply. This is correct. This is correct, yes. Okay, it approximates, which is good. The emoji used is not the best. Sometimes it uses the pie emoji, which is more interesting. Let's try. Oh, an important thing is I'm using this MXBay embedding. I think I'm using this one. There is no way here in the model card to understand if it is multi-language or not, but I believe it is not multi-language, this embedding. So let's try with Italian and we will have poorer performances from the point of view of the vector similarity, I guess. For example, I can tell una fetta di costata di 250 grammi. This is a meat, red meat. Totally out. This is completely useless because it matched with bread. So yeah, the model is completely not multi-language. So let's try again the same thing. So in this case, let's see how it copes. A slice of okay, so I will cut and paste this and I will use it again. Okay, since the provided CSV does not include information, we will use a general nutrition. Let's try again with this. Exactly. Let's see now how better it is. The first one is okay, I guess. I stick, and in general it's much more closer. So this was the estimate of the model without the CSV. Let's see how it changes. As you can see, the LLM takes quite a bit of time because it produces a number of tokens. If I okay, it changed a bit, not much. It's still quite good even without the augmenting, but sometimes without the augmenting it does a terrible job. But this is a very common food item. The emoji is great this time. Okay, right now still it's a work in progress. Of course, I'm not going to reply like this to the user. I will extract this. I will tell the user, this is what I believe I should add to your diary for today with SQLite local. Do you want to add it? And it will tell yes or not or whatever. Let's see how this is implemented. It's very simple because basically with vector sets, what you do is a vsim call, food item, and then fp32 and the vector. Since I can write a vector by a binary vector, or you can use also values if you want to use floating point values and so forth. But here I don't have a vector at hand. So what I will do is to use ele to have a similar element. I extract the vector from the element of the vector set itself. So we get all the simple, the nearest items here, okay? And we can see here what happens. So call DeepSeek is just I can read in your mind, you are thinking why to do that in C language. Well, the thing is that I have a Telegram bot library that I wrote myself in C because I had a financial bot use case that performed Monte Carlo simulations, heavy stuff, and I want to run it in a very cheap virtual machine, so it made a lot of sense. But even here, since I'm using, SDS, and I wrapped the JSON library, it's relatively high level everything but the Carl library, which I didn't wrap. I should, because it's to chat in this way. So I create basically the JSON payload with model, DeepSeek chat, role, content, you are helpful assistant, and so forth. Then I initialize the Carl object. Okay, this is really boilerplate. totally useless code. Then when I get a response, easy perform basically will call a callback that will append my response here. Carl opt write data response. This is the pointer of the object that I want to pass to the callback, the streaming callback accumulating the reply that arrives from HTTP. Then this is the wrappering. Let's see, you see it's very nice, I think. JSON select, and then you can specify a selector. This is the code. It's a very simple function, but it's so convenient. So you can use also the type, and it returns null if there is a type mismatch. So here we are asking for this field, which contains a string. Otherwise it fails, the call will return null. And here I print what I receive from DeepSeek, and that's very simple. On Llama, I tried to use Gemma. Gemma is a very strong model, but it is not as strong as this use case would demand. It performs extremely poorly compared to DeepSeek in this use case. This tells something about AI and programming. Basically, every time you can go for the strongest model that you have, because even this use case, which is not so complicated, still there is a huge difference. I will show you later how Gemma performs. Then let's go to the get embedding. This is just a request for the Llama API using MAX by embed large model. And then finally I call, okay, this is the part of the bot that handles the user request. So in this object we get the request of the user. We read the prompt file, which is the one that I show you before. Ask Redis for the food information, so we get the embedding of the request, and then we perform the vsim call. Food items SDS empty. Here I fill the string that I will substitute to the CSV string, and the arguments are vsim, food items, fp32, my vector, count 10. I'm asking for the top 10 items. Yes. Oh, not here, but why I see 5 items here? There must be some bug. At some point I will see what it could be later. Let's check here in the loop. Okay, I forgot byte you here because no, I just messed up, because since I didn't pass, I will show you. So if I do just that, each line is an item. Before the code was using with scores, so you have the similarity and you have the item and similarity, item and similarity. This is no longer needed since I removed with scores, and so we just fix that. Okay, let's see if still works. Chicken salad. Okay, grilled chicken, chicken salad. You see, even just to 2000 items have a lot of because we humans end eating almost always the same food again and again. The reason why I want to add this huge database here. This has I believe 3.5 million items, because I want to also be able to use the product name directly. Like if I eat some product that has a brand name, I want it to work. Okay, let's see how it performed. Okay, it had a match, so it just used it. Okay, makes sense. So I have the reply from Redis here and just concatenate them into a string. I show it for debugging, and then I substitute the prompt template with the request of the user and the CSV comma separated value items that I found, and I just call DeepSeek. I will show you what happens if I call instead Llama. It's also very slow, of course. Let's check in this. This was a very simple use case. Don't make them it too complicated for it. Okay, the match will be the same. It's deterministic, of course. Then it takes a lot of time because even if it is 4-bit quantized, it's still 27 billion parameters dense model. So for each token we have to activate the whole LLM weights, and it takes time, and also the reply can be a bit slow. Don't worry, I will cut this part of the video if it takes too much time. Okay, it replied. It replied correctly, I must say. To be honest, when I tested this, I tested the gem without the augmenting of the vector sets, so it hallucinated. It was very strong at following the format, but it hallucinated the food, basically calories, too much. But this time, find relevant data. The provided CSV contains data for beef rib stack. We will use this as our base. Wow, cool. But it was very slow anyway. So yeah, it's possible to maybe to use a cheaper model than V3 itself, if there are any cheaper models, because it's pretty cheap, but maybe a faster model. But okay, that's it. I will show you in the next video how the development continues, adding the very big database to Redis, and then possibly starting to implement the SQLite logic in order to store in the user database how many calories it is eating. Also, I want the bot to be able to serve multiple users as well. So of course my SQLite tables will have basically a different user ID, and I have I need a good way in order to segment the technically I will need to basically handle time zones, which is a bit complicated because the user have to tell you in which time zone it is. So probably I will simplify that a bit and just use the same time zone of the bot itself.